Section 1. The Dawn of a Tranquil Village. The morning light filtered through the thin mist, casting a gentle glow over the lush green forests. A serene and peaceful village emerged in its embrace, nestled between towering mountains as if secluded from the world. The stream meandered through the woods, its soft murmurs blending with the fresh scent of earth and morning dew. Morning Light Village, this quiet haven untouched by the hustle and bustle of the outside world, was home to a deeply rooted tradition: the belief in soul beasts. The villagers held that the pact between a person and their soul beast symbolized an unbreakable bond of life. Every year, when the young came of age, they would undergo a sacred ceremony to awaken the soul beast destined to be theirs. And today was the day when this new generation would step onto the path of their fate. By early morning, the village square was already bustling with excitement. The villagers had gathered before the ancient temple, preparing for the long-awaited awakening ceremony. Built from weathered blue stone, the temple bore the marks of time, its walls adorned with murals depicting the heroic tales of ancestors who had fought alongside their soul beasts. At the heart of the ceremony square stood a towering ritual stone, covered in intricate runes that shimmered faintly under the morning sun, radiating a mysterious blue glow. Elders clad in dark robes encircled the ritual stone, wooden staffs in hand, their voices resonating in solemn chants of an ancient blessing. Their low, melodic murmurs seemed to summon the unseen forces of nature. Before them, the village children stood with eager anticipation, their faces a mixture of nervous excitement. They were moments away from discovering the soul beast that would become their lifelong companion. At the edge of the village, standing in front of a modest wooden cottage, Aelya gazed quietly at the crowd gathering in the square. The morning breeze played with her long, red hair, sending a faint chill down her spine. Unlike the other children, whose eyes sparkled with anticipation, her deep-set gaze was calm, almost distant. Her parents had perished when she was still a child, lost to a sudden beast tide that swept through the land. Since then, the village elders had taken her in, raising her with kindness and wisdom. Yet despite their warmth, Aelya always felt like an outsider, forever out of place. Her fingers slowly curled into a fist, a slight tremble betraying the unease within her. This ceremony, something every child longed for, filled her with an inexplicable sense of dread. "Aelya, why are you still standing here?" A bright, familiar voice snapped her from her thoughts. She turned to see Noah running toward her. Ever the energetic soul, he was one of the village's most beloved children, full of enthusiasm and charm. Everyone's already gathered. Today's the big day, our awakening. "Don't tell me you're nervous?" He grinned, playfully clapping her shoulder. Aelya pressed her lips together before offering a faint smile. "I just feel uneasy." Are you worried your soul beast will be too weak, or that you won't awaken one at all?" Noah teased, winking at her. "Don't overthink it. I bet yours will be even stronger than mine." She didn't reply. Instead, her gaze drifted toward the temple, where the ritual stone stood in quiet majesty, its runes shifting and glowing, whispering secrets from a time long past. At that moment, an elderly figure stepped onto the ceremony square. His long silver beard swayed gently with the wind, and his wooden staff tapped rhythmically against the stone ground, each sound steady and resolute. He was the most respected elder in the village, the one who would oversee the awakening ceremony. "Children," his voice was deep and commanding, carrying the weight of years. "Today marks the most important turning point in your lives. Soul beasts are gifts from the land itself, sacred companions that will guide and strengthen you." The crowd fell silent, reverence filling the air as they listened intently to his words. Aelya's gaze lingered on the ritual stone. The ancient monolith shimmered faintly, its blue light pulsing as if responding to an unseen force. Her heartbeat quickened. She recalled a memory from childhood, one she had never spoken of. Back then, she had snuck into the temple, curiosity leading her to lay a hand upon the ritual stone. The moment her fingers touched its surface, a strange, icy sensation spread from her palm, flooding her entire body. It had been unlike anything she had ever felt. Before she could understand it, an elder had pulled her away, his expression unreadable. He had not scolded her, nor had he explained anything. He had simply looked at her with an unfathomable gaze, as if contemplating something far beyond her understanding. She had buried that memory deep, but on quiet nights, that bone-chilling cold still haunted her. And now, that same unease crept up her spine once more, as if the chains of fate were tightening around her. "Aelya, let's go." Noah's voice broke through the haze of her thoughts. She took a deep breath, forcing her feet forward. A strong feeling stirred within her, an instinct whispering that today would change everything. Section 2. Rite of the Soul Beast. Awakening as the morning sun ascended, its golden rays bathed the village square in warmth. Anticipation filled the air, an electric mixture of joy and nervous excitement. The children stood before the ritual stone, their eyes shimmering with expectation. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, the awakening of their soul beasts. The elder, standing solemnly before the stone, gripped his wooden staff, a symbol of his authority. His gaze swept over the young ones, their faces filled with hope and determination. "Children," his voice rang deep and solemn, "today, you shall form a bond with your soul beast. This is nature's gift to you, the beginning of a new chapter in your lives." With those words, the ceremony began. The first to step forward was a tall, broad-shouldered boy named Karn, known as one of the strongest youths in the village. He placed his hands on the ritual stone and closed his eyes. At that instant, the intricate runes on the stone flickered to life, casting a soft blue glow around him. A gentle breeze stirred, and amidst the light, the translucent form of a wind wolf emerged. "A wind wolf! A fine soul beast indeed!" Murmurs of admiration rippled through the gathered villagers. Karn's eyes snapped open, his face lighting up with joy. His contract was sealed. His journey alongside his soul beast had begun. Next came a young girl named Aelya. With careful movements, she pressed her palm against the stone. Again, the runes flared, and this time, a crimson hawk materialized behind her. A red hawk, swift and keen, perfect for reconnaissance and attack. The elder observed with approval. One by one, the children took their turn, each awakening their destined soul beast amid cheers and applause. Yet amid the celebration, Aelya remained frozen in place, her heart pounding in her chest. She stared at the towering ritual stone, an inexplicable sense of foreboding gripping her tightly. At last, the elder turned to her and gave a small nod. "Aelya, it is your time." Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. Her fingers brushed the stone's surface. A cold, piercing chill seeped into her skin, spreading through her entire body. The moment she closed her eyes, it felt as though she were being pulled into a vast, endless void. Suddenly, a fierce wind howled through the square. The ritual stone's runes flared violently, shifting from blue to violet, then darkening into an abyssal black. A deathly chill seeped into the air. The temperature plummeted. The once joyous murmurs of the villagers twisted into gasps of shock. What's happening? The stone. It's changing. Aelya's body was enveloped in an overwhelming force, her consciousness teetering on the edge of an abyss. Deep within her mind, a voice, low and resonant, laced with ancient power, echoed from the void. The contract shall be fulfilled. Crack. The ritual stone shattered, its fragments bursting into the air. a dense black mist surged forth, coiling and writhing like a living entity. From within the swirling darkness, a colossal figure began to take shape. The villagers recoiled in horror, their panicked cries ringing through the square. Two piercing, ethereal blue eyes emerged from the shadows, locking onto Aelya. "That's an undead soul beast." The elder's face drained of color. The onlookers stood frozen, paralyzed by disbelief and fear. Alya's eyes fluttered open, their depths reflecting the spectral beast looming behind her. A numbing chill crawled through her veins. She had never heard of anyone awakening an undead soul beast before. In the village's ancient legends, such creatures were spoken of only in hushed whispers, omens of misfortune, harbingers of disaster. The whispers among the villagers grew louder, fear tightening its grip on the crowd. "She's contracted. A cursed beast? This is an omen. A calamity is coming." In that moment, Alya's fate was sealed. Her life would never be the same again. Section 3. The Coming Catastrophe. The sound of the ritual stone shattering echoed across the square, freezing the air in an eerie stillness. Thick obsidian mist seeped from the broken fragments, swirling ominously like a harbinger of doom. The villagers instinctively stepped back, their faces a mixture of fear and disbelief. "This is impossible." The elder's grip tightened around his staff, his eyes reflecting sheer shock. "She awakened an undead soul beast." A panicked voice pierced through the crowd. Terror spread like wildfire. Just moments ago, the square had been filled with joy and celebration. Now, the same villagers who had gathered in excitement stared at Aelya as though she were a monster. Their gazes burned with rejection and hostility. The undead soul beast, a forbidden existence, buried in the annals of history, yet never forgotten in nightmares. Legends spoke of them as cursed spirits, harbingers of death and calamity. Centuries ago, an undead soul beast had appeared at the Empire's borders. In just 3 days, it had reduced 3 entire towns to smoldering ruins, leaving no survivors. Since then, Imperial records had declared the undead soul beast an absolute taboo. Whenever one emerged, it was to be eradicated without hesitation. To the villagers, these creatures were not merely omens of destruction, but guides to the underworld itself. They walked unseen in the shadows, feeding on death, thriving on fear. It was said that at night, ghostly blue flames ignited in their wake, lighting the path for wandering souls. But those who had glimpsed an undead soul beast with their own eyes never escaped its curse. Without exception, they met an untimely and gruesome end. The villagers' fear was ingrained in their very blood. Generations of whispered warnings had instilled an instinctive dread, an inescapable loathing for what stood before them now. "She's cursed. She'll bring disaster to the village. We have to stop her." Aelya stood frozen, her entire body numb with cold. She looked around at the faces she had known her whole life, now filled with nothing but fear and hatred. It felt as if something inside her had been torn apart. I didn't mean for this to happen," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. But no one listened. Panic and rage had already taken hold, pushing the villagers toward a terrifying decision. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Elder, we can't let her stay. She'll destroy us all." "Yes, drive her out. No, even worse." A middle-aged man's eyes gleamed coldly as he dragged a thumb across his throat in a chilling gesture. The elder's expression darkened, his silence heavy with the weight of an agonizing choice. Just then, the ground trembled slightly. A rhythmic, ominous thudding grew closer. Hoofbeats. A veil of dust rose from the village's outskirts as a unit of knights approached in formation, their black armor gleaming menacingly under the sun. The Black Iron Legion. A collective gasp of horror rippled through the villagers. They knew these men, the Empire's most ruthless enforcers. The Black Iron Legion left no survivors. "Run!" Someone screamed. But before anyone could move, a cold, commanding voice rang out. "Stay where you are!" The lead knight pulled his horse to a halt. His face remained hidden beneath his dark helm, but his sharp, piercing gaze locked onto Aelya, like a predator sighting its prey. "Found her." He let out a cruel chuckle. "Target confirmed. Take her." In an instant, the Black Iron Legion attacked. Blades flashed in the sunlight, cutting through the air as chaos erupted. Screams filled the square as villagers scattered in all directions, desperate to escape. Aelya stood frozen, fear constricting her chest like a vice. She had no idea why they were after her, but she knew one thing: if they captured her, death would be inevitable. "Run!" The Elder's desperate shout jolted her back to reality. "Aelya, run!" Something inside her snapped. Instinct took over, and she turned on her heel, sprinting with everything she had. Behind her, the knights charged forward, swords slicing through the air. Flames erupted as the village descended into a nightmare of blood and fire. In the distance, the undead soul beast let out a deep, guttural growl, a sound that resonated through the night, mirroring the fear in her heart. And then, she felt it. A pulse of raw, unfamiliar energy surged through her body, its rhythm perfectly synchronized with the soul beast's low, echoing cry. That night, the life Aelya had known was reduced to ashes. Nothing would ever be the same again. Section 4. Escape and Awakening. The gleaming blades sliced through the air. Flames devoured the village, and chaos reigned in blood and screams. The Elder, using the last of his strength, raised his staff, unleashing a brilliant burst of light that repelled several soldiers of the Black Armored Legion. He turned to Aelya, his gaze firm and urgent. "Run! Go deep into the forest. Don't look back." Alya's legs trembled as she stared at the fallen villagers, shock and grief filling her eyes. Blood soaked the earth, and the firelight reflected their desperate faces. Something seemed to choke her throat, making it hard to breathe. Her reason and emotions waged a fierce battle within her. But reason whispered, if she didn't escape, not only would she die, but the entire village would be annihilated. Clenching her teeth, she fought back the tears and turned to dash into the dark forest. Behind her, the sounds of slaughter and agonized cries intertwined, whispering nightmares into her ears. The forest shadows loomed over her, dense branches swaying in the wind. Sharp twigs scratched her skin, drawing thin lines of blood, a painful reminder that she was still alive. Yet the soldiers of the Black Armored Legion pursued relentlessly, their heavy footsteps pounding like a war drum of death, echoing through the silent woods. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her heart pounded violently, and the biting night wind threatened to tear apart her consciousness. She could hear the soldiers' furious shouts behind her. "Quick! She won't get far!" Terror gnawed at her, her fingers clenched tightly into her clothes, nails nearly piercing her palm. Then, in the midst of her desperate escape, an unfamiliar yet overwhelming force surged through her. It was both foreign and eerily familiar, as if something ancient and dormant within her was awakening. Unconsciously, her fists clenched, and a faint blue glow seeped from her fingertips. The temperature plummeted, the air around her growing thick with an eerie chill, making the night even darker and more menacing. A sudden low growl resonated from the depths of her soul, a call so ancient it felt like it came from another time. Her pupils constricted, the world around her falling into eerie silence. Only that solemn, sorrowful voice echoed in her mind, undeniable and commanding. Aelya abruptly stopped. The black-armored soldiers were almost upon her, their blades gleaming with a lethal glint. "Seize her!" A commanding voice rang out, and the soldiers surged forward. But in that instant, Alya's eyes turned pitch black. A torrent of ethereal blue energy erupted from her, sweeping across the battlefield. The wind howled violently, a cold and oppressive aura engulfing the surroundings. Dead leaves spiraled into the air, dust and shadows entwining. Darkness spread beneath her feet like an unseen force, pushing back the soldiers who had been closing in on her. Then, a ghostly figure emerged, a towering, fearsome beast, its form shrouded in eerie blue flames. Its glowing eyes burned in the darkness, and a deep, guttural growl sent tremors through the entire forest. The soldiers halted, staring in horror at the sight before them. Their hands trembled around their weapons. That's an undead soul. Beast? No. This can't be real. She actually awakened such a creature. Panic seized them. Some lost their grip, their swords clattering onto the ground with sharp metallic clangs. Aelya felt the surge of power coursing through her veins. The fear within her faded, replaced by a chilling calm she had never known. She slowly lifted her head, her gaze as deep as the abyss. The undead soul beast's low hum resonated with the rhythm of her heartbeat. In that moment, she understood. There was no escaping fate. The battle was inevitable,